believe it, but we even laughed. Even though Lyoko was falling to pieces then, because Grigory had just shut down the supercomputer. Yeah, confirmed Yumi. I thought that after the code down I would miss Lyoko a lot, because of all these adventures that we went on. And yet, Lyoko doesn't matter to me in the least. What I really miss is Xana, our friend. At that moment, Jeremy stood and rang his fork against a glass to call for silence. He and Aelita had been waiting for this moment all evening, and the time had finally arrived to share their news with everyone. "Tell me something," exclaimed the boy. "Haven't you been wondering what the codes that we found in Richard's palm computer contained?" In the living room of the Hermitage, a large uproar took over. Everyone began to talk at the same time. A mischievous smile grew on Jeremy's face, and he let Anthea explain the first part of the mystery. Hannibal Mago ordered me to study them, and while analyzing them, I understood that it was a program divided into two parts. The first was an activation code, and the second was completely incomprehensible. It was clear to me that this program's purpose was to activate something, but I had no clue as to what. Jeremy continued. Later on, Anthea and I worked together on deciphering the codes, and I realized that she was completely right. The last part of the codes didn't seem to make any sense, as if it was only a ton of random letters and numbers. So I told myself that maybe it was just that. It seemed like one very, very, very long password. A password? Asked Richard. But why? To protect what? I don't know if you remember this one scene that we saw in the mirror, Aelita intervened this time. But in it, my father had problems making a backup copy and needed more space to stock an excessive quantity of information. An amount of space that no hard drive was capable of supplying him. Yumi jumped to her feet. Of course, she exclaimed. And so you told him that you would help him and that he could count on you. And in the next scene, you were lying down on the couch and had a fever, and then the men in black arrived. Exactly, said Aelita. Daddy needed more space, so he and I decided to use my brain. The room was overtaken by absolute silence. Jeremy smiled. Remember that memory snatching device? Well, Hopper used it to pour all the supercomputer's programming code into Aelita's mind. He practically copied all of Lyoko into Aelita's brain, and to avoid having this information stolen by anyone, he protected it with a password that he then sent to Richard. That's why I was burning up with a fever in the mirror, explained Aelita, and also why I spent all afternoon sleeping today. I left yesterday with Jeremy in secret, and we returned to the old factory to recreate Lyoko. All of it. All of its sectors, its towers, and its core. And even the first city. It was incredible news. Jeremy observed the bewildered faces of his friends. He had also had trouble believing that such a thing were possible. To be able to reconstruct Lyoko with a code identical and opposed to that of the code down. That was the reason why Aelita had always suffered from sudden spells of amnesia. Her brain was literally crammed full of millions and millions of pieces of data. Just like an armoire stuffed so full that it was impossible to close all the way. When Jeremy had realized that Richard's codes were in reality a password, he imagined that Hopper must have prepared a security system to protect his invention from the men in black. But he hadn't the slightest idea that the professor had in reality copied every last bit of Lyoko, enclosing and locking it away in Aelita. Everything went so fast after that, with the battle and all the rest, that he hadn't gotten back to this puzzle until... And Xana? Asked Ulrich. That's right, Xana, Odd added. He told us that you couldn't make a backup copy of his new identity because he became human. Xana would say that's true, but the final words that he spoke to Aelita before dying gave me an ingenious idea. He said, remember me. Maybe Xana knew all about the codes, or maybe he sensed the truth. Or maybe he was trying to guess at it and found the solution to this mystery by chance. Remember me. Besides having all of Lyoko in her memory, Aelita was also Xana's best friend. You could say that no one knew better than her, especially with his new human personality. At this moment, Aelita smiled and Jeremy stopped for a second to look at her lovingly before continuing. When we recreated Lyoko, we only needed to take advantage of all the information in the rest of her brain to... The boy was on the point of launching himself into a scientific expose of the highest level, but Aelita motioned for him to stop. I think that it would be easier to show them directly, don't you think? Come with me to the basement, to my father's secret room. We have another guest on the way to eat dessert with us. He has blonde hair and has been stuck in Lyoko for a very, very long time. He must be about to come out of the scanner.